Digital Corridors, where we believe in a better future for sales. Now, the topic today is about storytelling. Now, I think we all know storytelling is important, especially when we think about having quite, effective and meaningful conversations. But I want us to tackle, and hello, Jensen, nice of you to join us. If you're there, we can just see your ceiling at the moment. But yeah, what stories do we tell, and when is it most appropriate to tell them? And so before we get into the topic, let's do some introductions.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jordan Abbott, also known as the Sales Poet. I'm a BDR at the Institute of Sales Professionals. Looking forward to the session today.
The assessment and the session.
Yeah, if I can get my words out.
Welcome. And finally, we have the young buck.
We do indeed. Hi, I'm Jensen Abbott, BDR at content.ai, and really excited to be here today.
Have you got a bit of a sore head this morning?
A little bit. I got in late as well, and then I ate dinner rather late as well. So then I ended up going to bed rather late. So it was kind of, I've got my coffee waiting for me over there.
Okay.
Lovely.
What time did you get in?
Well, we left the event around 10:20. Farouk drove me back. It must have been around 11:30, but then I started to eat.
Yeah.
And then,
No Mackies on the way home?
No Mackies on the way home. No, not at all. Not at all.
So just for context, Jensen was at a black tie event last night, looking very dapper. I'm sure we'll likely see a post on LinkedIn at some point in the
You will indeed. Yeah.
Your first black tie event, right?
Yeah, it is. First black tie event.
Nice. How was it overall?
No, it was good. It was really nice. The event was done really nicely. It was great to just kind of relax, right? Although it's a work event, it's kind of nice to just relax, actually network and talk to people. So yeah, had some great conversations.
Now here's a question. Did you tell any stories? Or do you have any stories to tell?
Well, I mean, a great story was the fact that I wore my granddad's suit jacket. that was a great conversation starter.
Don't admit to that one.
I know. Do I have any stories? No, I don't have any stories, in all honesty.
Yeah. But it's a good point, though. You're a few years into your journey in B2B sales, and who would have thought that you needed to invest in a black tie dinner suit so early on in your career?
I know, and I mean, I put pressure on myself, right? Because when I had black tie, I was like, right, I want to kind of look the best, be the best. You go to a suit shop to look the best, and the price just doesn't justify it, right? You're a bit like, sorry.
Yeah, you need to do make some more sales.
You need to take your partner with you, because girl maths is a thing. It's crazy how you can justify the spend. Meg is brilliant at it.
Method in your madness.
Someone that is like she will admit maths is not her strong suit, but when it comes to something like that, she's a whiz.
Yeah. Brilliant. So let's get into the topic then for today, which is storytelling. Where do you guys want to kick us off, or do you want me to kind of frame my view of the world of storytelling?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah. Whatever feels comfortable.
Cool. So I think for me, storytelling is a fundamental part of B2B sales. And if I think about a typical B2B purchase process, there are 4 stages, right? There's stage 1, which is before a need has been established. Stage 2, which is when a need is being established or has been established and the potential buyer has identified a need and the potential problem they're seeking to solve. There's stage 3, which is evaluating their options. So who can potentially, or what can potentially solve this problem, help them achieve the objective they're looking to achieve. And then the 4th is around, balancing the risk and making the decision as to how they actually solve that problem, which solution they go for. So if we think about the role that we have in sales mapped to those 4 stages, stage 1 is really, about us making ourselves visible to, to the buyer, right? And typically or traditionally that's been done on email and cold calling. But actually, as the 3 of us now know, that's not the most effective way to make yourself visible. Using LinkedIn and a specific social selling methodology is the most effective way. And stories can be told as part of your personal brand development on your social profile in order to capture the minds, the eyes of a potential buyer within your territory. Stand out, look a little bit different. Then when I think about that second stage, it's really about making that connection with the buyer and what stories can you tell that actually make that personal connection. Swapping personal stories is a really valuable exercise to do and builds a bond between you and the buyer, builds rapport. Then the third stage is really about, us differentiating both ourselves and the solution that we provide, and even the company that we are, as we're working with a buyer in that third stage where they're evaluating options, they need to understand the commercial value that we would bring to them as a viable option. And stories play an important role there. And then finally, that 4th stage, which, I referenced, I referred to it as, balancing risk and making a decision, trying to make the right decision. That's usually a very difficult situation for a buyer to be in, because it's like herding cats. They're trying to build consensus with multiple stakeholders.
Yeah.
So for me, the role of storytelling there is to tell those stories that can be replayed behind closed doors when you're not in the room. So the buyer can then, effectively inspire, validate, win hearts and minds internally, and overcome any objections that might be appearing from the various stakeholders in the decision-making unit.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, any thoughts? I feel like we should start on the personal story, kind of stage 2, but up to you guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think when we look at the mechanics of storytelling, it's such an inherently human trait. You think back to our ancestors sitting around a campfire, exchanging stories. When you have a child, the way that you teach them things is through stories. That's what has the most impact, whether it's because they can relate to it or, there's that sort of cathartic element, the emotions that stories can conjure up. And, even in the B2B space, buying is an emotional activity. Emotions and the way that individuals are feeling, their opinions, that's what pushes the deal through the buying process.
Yeah.
So, as you said, rather than just sharing stats and figures, how can you tell a story that's going to get people bought in?
Yeah, and the first thing that must be done, that needs to be done, is getting them bought into you as an individual.
Yeah.
Do they like you? Do they feel like they can trust you, get along with you? Do they believe that you might be able to help them? And I think, I've done a couple of surveys now. One was in a Institute of Sales Professionals webinar that I did. Another was on LinkedIn, and then another was in a cohort of 20 people that I was training. And I asked the question, which type of story are you most likely to tell when you meet a contact for the first time? A success story or a personal story? And it was 50-50. So on two of the three occasions, it was 50-50. And on the ISP webinar, I think there was about 100 salespeople on the call. So it was a fairly decent number to have asked that question to. Yeah. And the problem with telling a success story prior to making that personal connection is
why does anyone care?
Well, yeah. Why does anyone care? It just, like a heat, like the zone of resistance is like a heat shield on the shuttle. It just bounces off. It's not believed until that buyer feels like they know you, like you, and can trust you.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think, I think it was Salesforce that did some research, and we know that trust is a prerequisite of any purchase or even a conversation, right? 80% of buyers say that it is key, but then 45% say that it's more important than a product feature or price. Now, it'd be interesting to find out, what sort of ratio, what the relationship is between that trust element and then a success story or social proof. I guess social proof, that's more bridging into the trust space, but yeah.
What do you find, Jensen, in your day-to-day when you're, in your role as a BDR?
What do I find? I mean, me personally, I think, obviously it depends who I'm speaking to, and if the research that I've done on that individual, scan their LinkedIn profile, try to get a little bit more information kind of on who they are. If I can find that out, I can tailor my story, right? Or what I'll do is I'll actually change my story slightly. But you see, what I've done is I've created my own personal story. Then I've got a bit of a story of content.ai, and I've actually kind of merged that together to create one big story, not a big story, but a bit of a longer story that actually flows and it transitions from my personal story, right? Talks about experiences, things that I've not achieved, but things that I've done, flows into that kind of story of content.ai. And don't get me wrong, it's taken me time, and it's still an ongoing process, right? It's never going to be finalized, my personal story and the story of content.ai, right? Because I'm always going to adapt it. There's always going to be new things to add. And also I like to try different things, right? So I actually like to try different things, see if people react differently to my story. So I might add in one piece for someone else and see how they react. If that went well, okay, I might keep it there. If I'm telling my story and actually the person might be kind of turning off a little bit, right? I'm like, oh, okay, that doesn't land with that individual, right?
Yeah.
Bit of a boring story. I need to change it.
I like just jumping in there, coming back a couple of steps. I like what you've done with your, combining your personal story with a company story. When we think about storytelling, it's always important to make sure that you have a business point when you're telling your story, so that we're not just telling stories that we might tell down the pub.
Yeah.
Or at the family barbecue. We're actually telling a story with a specific business point, because we want the recipient to understand what we can do for them, how we can help them. And to Jordan's point, going back thousands of years, and in terms of how our brains are wired, our brains are naturally wired to tell stories and to listen to stories. And so making sure there's a sequence of events to follow, but also making sure there's a business point, because you know, especially when you've met someone for the first time, it's important that they understand who are you, what do you do, and what's your intention.
Mm. And it's funny you said that, because I had the exact same conversation with someone last night. It was really weird. And actually, you say did you have any stories from last night?
Here they go.
Yeah.
There
So, if anyone
Remember, we're live, Jensen.
Yeah. We were dancing on the tables. No. If anyone knows me, right, I get quite hot, right? And sometimes if I'm nervous or may feel a little bit uncomfortable, I go a bit like a tomato, right? Go a little bit bright red. So I'm trying to eat my dinner and I'm very hot and bothered. So I had to kind of just take a step outside to catch some fresh air. And someone who was on our table come out, and was meant to be like a 5-minute conversation turned into a 40-minute conversation outside. We're deep into kind of personal brand, building your personal brand, stories, that's kind of thing, and just exchanging ideas. And I must say, I learned quite a bit from this individual, and some tactics that they've used that actually I'm going to try myself, right?
Nice.
But then we walked back into the room and everyone was like, where the hell have you guys been? Like, it's been like 40 minutes. And we were like, yeah, we know, we just got talking and chin wagging, and no, it was just an awesome conversation. And you know, those conversations where you just get lost, and then you check the time and you're like, wow, okay, we've kind of been away from the table, been away from the party for quite a long time. And also another funny story is that I am the shortest person there. So with in the photos that you're going to see on LinkedIn, everyone's head height is about up to here. Then I drop down to here, and then everyone's head height resumes. So you'll see there'll probably be some funny jokes going around.
But you're 3 feet wider than anyone else.
Yeah.
I did have a chuckle when you shared that photo. Conscious of time, I just want to agree with both of what you've just said. The magic that happens when you can create that, or when you can combine that personal story and, you know, a bit more of a company story, because, you know, to your point, Alex, it shows intention, it shows purpose. It quite literally embodies that Theodore Roosevelt quote, "You don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." This is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
This is my purpose. This is my motivation. And, you know, while, we're all salespeople, and we're compensated based on, you know, how many people we can progress. But rather than that just being the motivation, this is my core motivation. This is why I work for this company. This is my beliefs. These are my beliefs. This is my belief system. And there's so much power in that.
Yeah, indeed. And 100%. And Jensen, just coming back to your 2 stories, what was the business point in your stories?
What do you mean?
So with the networking and chatting outside for 35, 40 minutes, like, is there a business point to our story? Is it wear your granddad's suit at a black tie networking event?
I mean, get hot
and bothered and go and have a chat with someone?
No, it was just more on the side of kind of, I remember as well, going back very quickly, my first networking, right?
The Anticon.
Yeah, I had
to
down a glass of wine to almost give me that Dutch courage, right? And then very weird that now, look at me, right? I can walk into an event, I can have a conversation with anyone, and you don't have that awkwardness. And how I've gone from having a 2-minute conversation with a prospect to having a 40-minute conversation with someone outside, and you get lost in that conversation. And also when you're kind of exchanging stories, there's more value in it. It's more enjoyable.
Yeah.
It really is.
That's a great point to end on, actually. So as we kind of come to a close, then I think you know, we've spent a fair amount of time on the importance of the kind of personal story, making that connection with someone that you've met for the first time, or perhaps you know but haven't had the opportunity to create a bond.
Mm.
And so, telling your personal story, and as you've said, Jensen, bringing the company story, a tailored company story into that is a really great way of making a connection. And if if you can stop talking long enough as a salesperson and actually kind of draw a line under telling your story and ask your buyer to tell theirs, you've set the precedent in terms of the type of story you're expecting to hear from them. And B, when you've swapped personal stories, that's when the connection is really made. That's incredibly powerful. So, I think, perhaps next time we could go deeper on some of the other types of stories if you're up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of how to tell stories that differentiate us and the company, the solution that we provide. And then maybe a follow on in terms of how to build consensus effectively. You up for that?
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Thank you as always for your contribution to what is an amazing topic, I think. Any last comments, points from each of you?
No, have a good day. We're approaching the weekend. The sun in France has finally decided to show its face.
Yeah. Canadian Grand Prix this weekend.
Indeed.
For any F1 fans.
Yeah.
Good. So with that, we'll see you tomorrow on F1 Banter at 1 o'clock UK time. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the week and have a wonderful weekend all.